your future.
Potato sticks, freaky fries. Get that awesome crunch.
A beautiful evening. Thank you so much for joining us on the Oxygen of Democracy. Of course, today, the 11th of August, 2014. My name is Kalam Chima, your usual host on this particular program. Today, we are privileged and honored to be joined in the studios by two guests, of course, very well-known figures who do not even need to be introduced, but for the sake of those that are seeing them for the first time. I'm joined in the studios by UPND Deputy National Secretary Mr. Kuchunga Sumsamba, of course sitting on my left. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Kalan. Good evening, viewers. I'm looking forward to great interaction with you.
All right. And sitting on my right is no other than Mr. Muhabi Lungu, who is the National Secretary, of course representing the Movement for Multi-Party Democracy, MMD. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Good. I'm well too, and good evening to all of the viewers, and of course, good evening to my colleague.
All right. And tonight's discussion is centered on the impact of political divisions among opposition in Zambia. I'll repeat that one again. The impact of political divisions among the opposition in Zambia. Let's look at this. All right. So, I don't know. You are taking part in the Mangango by-election. Equally, your party is taking part in the Mangango by-elections. Before we go to the discussion, briefly, let's look at what's happening on the ground in Mangango. Your take on currently what's happening there, generally?
Well, I think now we are going to the last week of the campaigns. Of course, there have been some challenges. The ruling party, as usual, has a propensity to break the laws. I think they have the Boma ni Boma mentality. They've been trying to, convert public transport into private transport by changing plates. We are aware also that they're using government buildings as their campaign centers. But apart from that, I think the campaign has gone on very well on our side. We feel that the electorate are buying into our message, and we're very hopeful that come next Tuesday, we're adding another member of parliament in that house.
You seem confident.
Yeah, very confident. I think Mangango for us is low-hanging fruit, and we're definitely picking it.
I'm sure your colleague on my right will be equally saying the same. Mr. Muhavi?
Well, we are also reasonably confident that we have done our work within the constituency. We've had a number of teams going there to assist with the campaign. As you know, it was our seat. Of course, we had some difficulties in the sense that our candidate is the one who went over to the Patriotic Front as a deputy minister. And of course, there were some toying around with our structures. So we had to fix some of the structures before we even started the campaign. But with that said, I think we're reasonably sure. I think have been on the record that I don't like to make very verbose statements, let me say. Not that I'm saying that his statement was verbose, but I don't like to make statements because in the end, really it is the electorate who decide. But you did say something regarding breaking of the electoral code of conduct, and I think here I would like to agree with my colleague entirely that where violence has resulted, usually it is because there is an attempt, usually by people from the ruling party, to try and break the rules. We faced it in Chipata Central, and of course in several other areas where they feel that there is a threat. So there is always that. When we were filing in the nominations, I was in Mangango myself, and clearly you could see that our colleagues had come with their government vehicles, and some of them, even the flags were being waved. We decided not to react at the moment, but we feel we are doing what we can.
All right. Thank you so much. Of course, that's just briefly on what's happening in Mangango, coming from the two senior party members from UPND and MMD. Getting into the discussion of the night, I think let me start it with Mr. Simsamba.
Yes.
Is there any kind of division among opposition political parties in Zambia, particularly you and your party and the Movement for Multi-Party Democracy, MMD?
Well, thank you, Cullen. I think this discussion, probably if you had defined for us what division is in this context.
There have been verbal confrontations, this one attacking the other attacking the other, responding to the other. And that's what has been really a concern to most Zambians. What is this almost all about?
I think that we need to define what we mean by division. I think that coming to this platform, I'm wearing a label, UPND label, he's wearing an MMD label. Already, that means that we are divided. We're in different political parties, different ideologies, different philosophies. And our messages are different. We could even go further to say that the UPND was formed because our founding president could not find democratic space in the MMD. I mean, you know that his predecessor now the many elections that Mr. Mazoka won in Baulen. So probably divisions come from that particular sense. And I think that in a multi-party democracy, we are definitely going to have different views about different things. And for me, I think that's healthy. It means that we are not seeing things exactly the same way. Just like we have different fingerprints, different, way of thinking. If both of us are going to think the same way, then one of us is irrelevant. And I think in that particular way, platforms have been formed based on how people see and view, the political future of the country. And so definitely UPND will see certain things different from the MMD, and I think that's healthy. We must debate, we must differ, and we are in a competition. And we are competing about ideas. And we cannot be silent when competing. I will vocalize my views, and he will. Same way. And I think that the only thing that I'll call for is that we should be civil in our discussion. That's healthy for our democracy. But if people expect that the MMD will think exactly the same way as the UPND, I think that's a very difficult
Let's look at your thinking as MMD. I'll get back to you. Let me just go to him. Let's look at the thinking of the MMD that you can never, in your dreams, win the 2016 general elections.
Well, I do not think that the MMD have said that. I think that the journalists decided to twist what the MMD did say and therefore try to create a conflict. I think Mojave and I talk on the phone, we exchange texts. I have actually read his paper. He said it's most unlikely that the UPND will win 2016. He did not say the UPND cannot win 2016. But of course, some journalists along some road decided to give it the wrong title so that probably we could exchange. And I think that is healthy for Mohavi to think that way, because he must project his party as the one that should win. That's why he's in MMD. And I should think that my party should win, and I should fight for that contest. So in that particular respect, I think that's a healthy debate. I've looked at Mohavi's reasons, and I think I have a rebuttal for them. And probably he also rebut my rebuttal. And that's healthy for a democracy. We should continue to debate along those lines. I mean, iron sharpens iron. Great minds should interact and see things differently. But I think probably and some issues will reach consensus. I think that we agreed on things like the Constitution. We agreed on many other things. But probably we won't agree on who's stronger in Mangango. We won't agree on who's stronger in Kasenengo. We'll have to compete, and that's the way life is.
Mr. Mohavi Lungu, I mean, you've been following what's been happening in the media, especially that you've been on the center of all this discussion. Really, what has been going on, and what has been these kind of churches, if I may call it, between you and the UPND?
Yeah, well, okay. I think let me first agree with what my colleague has said, that in a democratic system, the premium has to be placed on competing ideas. The premium must be that the competition is about the concepts and the strategies and the perspectives and the values and principles which we believe. As he put it, he is in the UPND for some reason, and there is a reason why he's not in the MMD. Equally for me, there is a reason why I belong to the MMD and why I'm not in the UPND. And as he puts it, that is very healthy. Secondly, it is, I think, very important to never lose sight of the fact that we are, after all of us competitors. We are competitors. We are political competitors. And although we are competing for ideas, but we are also competing for actually electoral victories. So whether the electoral victory is at the presidential level, or it's at the parliamentary level, or whether it is at a council level, all of us are competing to say, look, not only do we have this set of ideas which are good, but we also have these sets of technocrats or people who can do better than the other side. So I think that people should never lose sight of that. That is the second significant thing. The third significant thing, I think that is very important to also never lose sight of, is one sometimes gets the view that the general public believe that the sole objective of those political parties in the opposition is to gang together so that you could remove the PF or to remove whoever is in government. And that if it appears that you are not targeting your firepower on the governing party, then there must be some sort of disconnect within the political space. That is not true. One of the reasons why we are where we are today is because people felt we have to remove the MMD at any cost. We have to remove the MMD at any cost, whether it was because of longevity, whether it is because of what they were convinced by the post or whatever, but you have to remove him at any cost. It doesn't even matter who we are bringing in next. And that sort of reasoning brings problems. You cannot take a position that you have to remove someone at any cost, and if you don't seem to be cooperating, then you've either been bought by that person or you have been compromised or not. That's the third thing that is very important. For us in the MMD, as a political party, we're very much alive to the fact that our role is to provide checks and balances to the PF so that they can succeed for the people of Zambia. But because we know that even with our checks and balances that they may not succeed, then we look forward to ourselves getting in the government as first point of call. Of course, they have the same philosophy. But lastly, I think which is for me equally more important, the democratic system is very noisy. They say that it is very noisy, and sometimes people interpret the noise of the democratic system and think that it is war. Now, obviously, when it gets to the position where people start violence, like what has happened in Mangango, as you were referring to, then we know that we have crossed the line. But in terms of the interchange it is a contact sport. They say that politics is a contact sport. However, it must have some levels of civility, as my colleagues are done. So, if civility is not there, then you have a problem. Yeah.
Mr. Simsamba defended you by saying that you actually did not say that the UPND cannot win the election. But I attended your last meeting. I was there. You gave out some statistics of how the UPND have performed.
Yeah,
that was your basis where you said the UPND cannot form government in 2016.
I said unlikely, as he said. Even in that press statement, if you say.
You still believe that it's unlikely for the UPND?
Yeah, of course, I do. But before I even go to that, let me say that none of us are gods. Or unless there are people who believe that they are God. I myself do not believe that I'm a God. And I myself believe that God says he's very jealousy of his love and of his power. So none of us can predict. The circumstances are always changing. If any person comes to you and say that they are definitely sure about what will happen, then you have to begin to question the stability of that person or the sanity of that person. What we can possibly do is make predictions on the basis of assumptions, on the basis of data that we have available. The strength of any conclusion will be directly proportionate to the amount of evidence or data that you have collected. So on the basis of that, I made the projection that in our view, and given the data that is there, that the UPND are unlikely to emerge victorious. But you have to recall that it was as a reaction, and I'm sure maybe he would like to say on that statement. We have been the targets of anyone who thinks that we are to not be a player, to continue to begin to say two things which are very cardinal. One, that the MMD will never govern again. Okay, because the history in this country is that when a political party loses, it will never come back to government. That is one. There is also the idea that the MMD did nothing in 20 years, and therefore they should never be given an idea. Now, these two precepts are being used to be able to shrink our space, okay, so that people are convinced that in fact we have no future.
So that's the basis you are using to say even the UPND,
the basis,
judging from the past experiences, they cannot.
The basis was that there is none of us who can say that party is going to die, that party is going to live forever, that party is definitely going to win, or that party is definitely going to lose. No one can say that. Not even I can say that. We can only use the data that is available for us to make projections. And that is all we are saying.
Regarding using the data which is currently available, I'm sure I stand to be corrected, but the last election, general election, 2011, I'm sure you got, if not 18%, or below that or above that. I stand to be corrected, just as I said. So, are you, in our own view, do you think that using those statistics, you can still lose the 2016 general election?
Well, I do not think so. And like I said, I think I've done a paper which I was supposed to issue today, but because of circumstances, I think probably I'll issue it tomorrow. I think it's here. I have it. I do not believe in that. I think I'll give you reasons why. But before I get into that, the same way the MMD feels that other parties are trying to shrink their space by propagating a certain image of them is the same way we feel the MMD are doing to us. For instance, the only message the MMD seems to have now is that don't vote for a party that has never been in government, because you've seen how PF have messed up. I was listening to Dr. Nevers Mumba today. That was his punchline. Now, if you follow that punchline, he's actually saying don't vote for the UPND, because the UPND have never been in government before. First of all,
he didn't mention you.
He didn't mention, but
that's what I'm trying to find out, because there are so many political parties out there.
May I be allowed to?
You can go ahead.
You
can go ahead.
Yeah, because we fall in that category. We have never formed government before.
Okay.
And so when the president comes out and says, and by the way, in the opposition, apart from those who have never formed government, we are the guys with the largest parliamentary representation and probably with the strongest foot going to form government. So when Dr. Mumba says that, it probably 90% or 99% of what he's saying is actually targeted at the UPND. All right? So he says it openly, and he's been saying it frequently. So he does not expect his opponents to sit down and clap for him and say, well, he says that, we shouldn't say anything about them. It's a competition. We'll also put a label and a tag on them as we see them. You get the point, that as we interpret politics. So I don't think that it's correct for the MMD to cry victim and say we are reacting. They are also doing the same to other political parties. They are not clean. They are not saints in this particular regard. So I think that they're doing these things to other people. Now, getting back to these complex things about demographics. The PF, for instance, in 2001, the PF presidential candidate got 3% of the presidential vote. Within a 5-year cycle, 2006, he got 29%. That is an upward swing of 26%. Mojave says the UPND needs 22%, and that's unprecedented. I would like to say, I don't know which language you're using, that's not unprecedented. It's been done before. A presidential candidate swung from 3% to 29% in a space of 5 years. The data is there. All right, this is not a miracle. I'm talking about historical data, which my comrade is trying to rely on. So if it was done by one candidate, it could happen. And another candidate probably could even break, the percentage points and get it much further. We are told that we can't improve in Copperbelt, Northern, and so forth because of this gravitational pull. We've been below 5%. And so he doesn't see how we can go double digits. Well, again, 2006, Mr. Michael Sata, Western Province, got 4-point-something%. All right? And in 2011, got 22, almost 23%. 17-point-something percentage increase in that particular region. So these things have happened.
And even you are very sure that you are going to go beyond those figures.
I am saying we're told it's unprecedented. I am showing you that it's precedented. It's happened before in this country. I'm talking about the same historical data. You could look at figures and interpret them the way you want to interpret them, not really what the figures are saying. Are you getting the point? We are told that UPND won Solwezi Central, Mufumbwe, and Chilanga, and lost it in 2011. So, and underline what my comrade says, it means that winning a by-election or losing proves nothing, absolutely. In fact, he uses the word, proves absolutely nothing. Kalan, I want to ask you a question. Why would you advertise in a newspaper for candidates to run on your party? You ask them to pay a fee. When you adopt them, you send money to support that activity called a by-election. You send personnel, including your president, to go and campaign for them to prove absolutely nothing. Does that make sense to you? I don't think it does. You can't invest all that time, all that resource to prove absolutely nothing or to get a false sense of confidence. That's not true. The truth of the matter is that probably these results are not saying what the MMD should get from them, so they have to dismiss them and have to make a statement like that. The truth of the matter is that by-elections are an opportunity for growth. By-elections are an opportunity to measure whether your message is resonating with the electorate, among other things. How are you going to measure that? My comrade here made a statement that the UPND neither has a superior message, no strong organization. No, I can't remember the third thing he said, without giving us a test on how he arrived at those conclusions. And he's the man who's calling for data. Are you getting my point? I asked myself a question. How are we going to arrive at those things without looking at the most recent results? How do I know whether the people of Katuba still accept the MMD message? It's by seeing how MMD is performing in Katuba. How do I know if MMD still has strong organization in Katuba? It's by seeing how they perform in that election. If they are failing to open camps, if they are failing to, can I finish?
Okay.
I think you're allowing him. If they are failing to touch the whole of the constituents, it's a message. It is telling us something. If there are 25 local government seats and the MMD is failing to field in all of them, it's telling us something. It doesn't mean absolutely nothing. So I am saying, using the same data that he's using, I'm looking at it, I see different things. So what I can say, I think that the presidential electoral victory is within reach of the UPND, and what we need to do is not unprecedented. It is precedented, and I think I proved it from the data. If we had more time to just look at the charts, I think I would have gone much further. But I think I've tried to pick a few things to show you that probably the analysis that were given before overlooked certain information. And for me, I don't blame the other camp. I think that they did their best in what they saw at the time, and we're doing our best to react to what they see. Probably they'll see more than us, but that's healthy for a democracy, and that's what we call debate, and that's how we grow as a nation.
Do you also believe in some sections of society who believe that the MMD can ever come back into government because they've been there?
Well, I think that it's most highly unlikely that the MMD will bounce back. I'm looking at the results that we're getting. Even in seats that they once held, they're not even coming a good second. They're coming a distant third. Are you getting the point? And for
which one?
I'll tell you. Let me give you. Let me give you more than 5 years.
All right. Okay.
Let me give you more. Let me give more than 5 years. Ask me more, like which one? Livingstone, Feira, Katuba, Mpongwe, Kafulafuta. I've already given you 5.
Yeah, but I think let me get
and the next one is coming.
Okay.
Next Tuesday, Mangango. There will be number 3. We'll come back on this thing.
Okay.
It
All right,
must be lost.
Mr. Mohabi.
So this is showing you
Okay.
that the party is in decline from the data.
Let me before I go to his first one, let me just tackle the issue of decline. We are a political party that was in government for a long time, and we lost elections in 2011. The cycle of elections anywhere else in the world is that once a political party loses office, and people are very optimistic about the new party which has formed government that they will deliver. When that party goes into to government, the first year, there is a lot of excitement about that political party delivering. When that political party begins to show signs that they are not delivering, the first point of call is not the political party that has just left office. That is the case everywhere. Because the government then begins to say, all these mess that we have found, all these things that we are unable to fix, it is because of the guys who just left office. So you are not the first call. In the second year, they still make that excuse. It still has some resonance. It still has some believability. But it begins to die away, and people begin to say, no, these guys, they are not doing it. So what we're going to do is we're going to look for the third messiah. The first point of call is rarely the political party which left office. But as you cross over to the third year and to the fourth year, people then begin to make useful comparison between those who are in government then and those who were in government before. So there is a downward trend for all political parties that lose. It happened to UNIP and so on. But when it gets to a particular third year and so on, you begin that the graph begins to change. It happened to UNIP, and that is the reason why I can tell you that UNIP in 1995 had the MMD, we as a MMD, had to change the constitution in order to exclude UNIP. Reasons? Because by that time people were able to compare between the record of the government that is there and so on. So this issue of a decline is a normal thing, and this issue of an ascendancy of a third party
So you losing seats, you losing seats does not bother you as a party?
Listen, what I'm saying is that there are trends. It happened to the FDD. They also were born, shot up, and declined. It happened to the National Party, where because we were not doing well, they shot up, it declined. I can give you so many political parties that rose, and when people then begin to crystallize, you see that things begin to reverse. Now, does it bother us that we have lost some seats? Of course, it should bother any political party. But does it worry us to the point that we are prepared to commit suicide or to give up, to say there is no hope? Of course not, because we understand the trend. And we also know that because we were in government, that there is a propensity by Zambians to begin to look at the next things for a time. It is an excitement of a new girlfriend or something like that. But sooner or later, they begin to realize and to begin to refocus. So that is one. So for that one, it doesn't bother. But let me talk to, because it looks like I'm defending my thesis, that it is unprecedented that Michael Sata, that a person can jump by 20%, and that has happened before. Let me give you these facts, and you can see. One, first of all, in that paper, I said consolidation. There has been a consolidation after 2001. In 2001, there was no consolidation. You had literally 8 players on the political field who were contesting those elections. And if you look at that same graph that I provided, you will find that the other, actually had 41% of the vote in 2001. Mr. Anderson Mazoka had 28. Honorable Mwanawasa had 29. The next person was, I think, FDD, and so on. Then the remaining of them, who were so many, had more votes than any of us combined. So when the consolidation happened, that big number of the ones who, the total combined, General Godfrey Myanda, Tigenje Kaunda, Nevas Mumba himself, all the ones who did who all managed to get change, that consolidated in the three major political parties. That is UPND, MMD, and PF. And since that, 2001, 2006, the consolidation has been it is highly unlikely that in 2011 there will be a new player that will be able to exert enough pressure to change the dynamics of those three parties. So that 21 change is unprecedented. You know, it happened because there was no consolidation. And secondly, you have to remember that Mr. Michael Sata, who got 3% in 2001, had formed his party barely two months or so before that, and he was hoping to rely on MMD structures. When we moved over, he was able to exert those pressure in the MMD structure. Maybe that is what they are trying to do. So it is unprecedented.
Let me try to ask him.
Let me just go through all the three arguments. So I'm just saying, the argument we made was that there has been a consolidation. In this consolidation, there has been no precedence whatsoever where you can jump by that percentage. And it won't happen. I can guarantee you that it will not happen. That is one. Two, he talked about the issue of Western Province. That Mr. Michael Sata had very low votes in Western Province, and then he leaped. You know, there were two issues in Western Province. One was the fact that just before the election, maybe 3-4 months before the elections, there was a killing and the shooting and the Barosi movement, if you remember, on that issue. The civil society and all the other political parties, including the UPND and the PF, made a huge issue about the killing in Western Province. And MMD was demonized to the point that it didn't make any sense for the MMD to defend themselves. There was that. Secondly, there was the fact that Mr. Michael Sata, using that particular violent incident, went to the Western Province and promised them that these guys, the MMD, have killed your children and your brethren on the basis that they were refusing to grant you the Barosiland Agreement. We will give you the Barosiland Agreement within 90 days. Now, given the circumstances of the Barosiland Agreement, the killing and so on, what happened in that election is that we lost that gain. And that gain was taken by them. So it's possible. So if they say that they're going to jump by enormous leaps and bounds by being dishonest, as Mr. Sata did, by promising something that he obviously failed to deliver, maybe it can happen. Maybe, I can say. If you're going to have a situation where you will instigate instability and social instability within an area in hoping that you can get a jump, maybe it can happen. But as matters go, it is highly unlikely. Let me finish the last point, then he can jump in. The issue of by-elections. The statement that was made by my people was very simple: that the evidence of by-elections is inconclusive. I didn't say that you can judge whether you will win or you don't win. Throughout all of the last 20 years, where you have had elections, there is plenty of evidence that suggests that people win elections all the way through, and they get this impression that they are winning. Then come the general elections, and then they lose. Now, let me give you a simple example. He mentioned one of the constituencies in Ndola Rural, where he says we came out third. I think that he's talking about a specific one where our candidate was persuaded by the PF not to stand. We filed in, Evelyn Mwanawasa filed in. She was persuaded by PF people not to file in. Health issues were brought up. She did not stand. And the UPND won it with a sliver of a margin to the PF. Now, what you have to understand is that the person who is on the ballot at a parliamentary election is the individual who lives in that community and is a person who comes from that area and may have contacts, family issues, and they are voting for that individual at a parliamentary level. When it comes to the general election, the person on the presidential ballot is not the gentleman who they voted for. The person who's going to be on the presidential ballot is going to be either Dr. Mumba or Dr. HH or whoever. The form of resonance between the votes that were received by the candidate in a by-elections do not often correlate with the presidential ballot in a general election. And that is all I was saying. And that is empirical evidence. There's plenty of it. He can, as many evidences they can give of parties which have won one seat, maybe 6 months before an election, and have won it again in an election. I can equally give as many where one party has won it and lost it 6 months later.
Okay, I was going to ask you a question, but let me hold on and turn to Mr. Yeah, let's get to you. I'm sure he's given you a lot of examples and scenarios.
And I think I've given a lot of examples.
Exactly. But now let's look at what's making you so sure that you are better than the MMD and you stand a better chance of scooping the 2016 general elections. I know that you've already mentioned that you are winning some by-elections which were held by the former ruling party. Are you using that basis to claim that you're going to win the 2016 general election?
Yes, I think I've said a lot of things, but maybe if I come to your question, I need definitely to respond.
Okay, you may respond to his concerns.
I think that I'm getting a little bit confused as the debate goes on. The Mhabi who's in the paper, the Mhabi who's in the show, and the Mhabi who opened this discussion. The Mhabi who opened this discussion said it would be insanity for someone to say with certainty who will win and who will lose. I hope you remember that.
Exactly.
And I haven't changed
Yes,
my position.
I think I'm on the floor.
Oh, okay, all right.
I'm on the floor.
I think he's just agreeing with you.
Give me equal respect.
He's just trying to agree with you that you are correct.
I'm not interjecting,
Right.
even when he opposes himself.
The floor is yours.
I'm giving him respect. So I think let me be given equal. And in his last submission, he pointed at you and says, "I can guarantee you that it won't happen." He told you that. He can guarantee it. It means that he's now moving from uncertainty to certainty about the winning chances of UPND. He can now guarantee that UPND won't win.
That makes
in the
me
beginning,
right. When I say that...
That's what I'm saying. That reading his paper, listening to his opening remarks, listening to his last submission, I'm seeing that I'm debating with a moving object, not a fixed object. And I think that's worrying me. All right? But going further, I'm happy that Mhabi has admitted that politics is not a straight science, like he wants us to believe in his paper. Are you getting the point? The unpredictable do happen. I think that if we gave Mhabi in 2008, all right, to predict the performance of PF in 2011, he would have got it wrong by just using the data, whether he calls it consolidation or whatever it was. Yeah, because I'm just following his logic. This was a far less than a double-digit figure, and it finally skyrockets, grows by about 17 point something percent. So what I'm trying to say, there are a lot of unpredictable things there. It's like the World Cup. Somebody saying Germany is in the final, but they can't win because there's no European team that has ever won it in the Americas. It was broken. Germany won it. So what I'm trying to say that politics is like that in some cases. Are you getting the point? It's not a straight science. So what I'm trying to say is that you cannot definitely state, and I think I ought to agree with the first Mhabi, you cannot definitely state that by looking at 2001 results, 2011 results, therefore you can predict what's going to happen. You may have a sense of what may happen. But probably also, if we're going by that, then we must also accept that the most recent results are probably better indicators. Are you getting the point? And I think he says he can give us as many examples of what was won, and I don't think that's correct. I think I've analyzed all the by-elections from the time we went in democratic in 1991 up to now. I think that there are very few cases where parties won a seat in a by-election and lost it in the general election. There are very few cases. I get about most of them. I can give you even FDD. They won Chawama, won Kabwata, 2001, kept it in the general election.
FDD, Mr.
UPND.
Okay.
Let me say UPND was formed in 1998. won from zero, became the largest opposition party by winning by-election. The result, I think we won 4 or 5 seats. You know, UNIT didn't contest the 96 election. I think Dean had 2 seats. We beat that threshold and kept all those seats and went to 49. So I can show you many of those examples. It does say something. And I think that it's the same way. When my child goes and sits for a mock exam, it says something about how he will perform. It may not be exact, but it tells me something about how that child will perform in the final exam. There's a correlation between continuous assessments, mock exams, and the final exams. Now, getting back to what I'm saying again, he's changing. Mr. Mhavi says, by-elections have no predictive value. That's the exact words he used, if I can remember properly. And now he's saying the evidence may not be conclusive. That's saying two different things. That's saying two different things.
No,
when you
it's
say,
not, it's not.
when you say,
He's on the floor, and then you respond to that.
okay.
Let him just finish, then you respond to it.
when you say it has no predictive value, it means it has zero value in predicting the future. When you say it's inconclusive, you are saying you are not sure. It could say something, or it may not say something. You're making two different statements. And that's why I'm saying that the Mhavi I'm debating with and the Mhavi in the paper are two different. In the paper, he says they have no predictive value. And my argument is that they have predictive value. And you can use that as a barometer to test. Listen to me. If people don't like you talking about the Barroso Agreement, and you go in the by-election promoting the Barroso Agreement, they won't vote for you. Then you can go back to the drawing board and learn that people of Zambia don't want the issue of the Barroso Agreement. It has a predictive value. It will show you how to perform or how to change your message. And this is what my argument is. But because the MMD have performed badly since 2011, they would like to dismiss by-election results. But let's also, go fair. That what point did I want to make now? I think I'll end for there for now.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Let me ask you.
It's good that I didn't want to interrupt you. I wanted you to finish and then say you don't have anything to say at the end of the day. But you wanted to respond to some.
Yes, I do. You see, what my colleague is doing is playing with words. Okay, you say potato, I say potato. Okay. For example, the last example he uses.
Even as you answer that, sorry, but even as you answer that, are you changing goalposts? I think that's another.
This is what I'm saying.
That's another issue you have to respond.
That is what I'm saying. He is playing semantics with words. You can say potato or potato. For example, he says that I have said in my article that by-election results have no predictive value. That is not the same as saying that is different with saying they're inconclusive. It is not different. If you say you've done an analysis and you have found that you cannot conclude using this data to say whether this thing will fall this way or that way, can I ask you that can you use that to predict? If you spin a coin, for example, there's a heads on this side and there's tails on this side, and you spin it, okay? And one time it fell on tails. The other day it fell on the head, and you do it several times, and you realize that there is no correlation. Maybe sometimes in one set it falls 4 times on the head, sometimes it falls 4 times. Then you say no. Depending on this, I can't tell whether it will fall heads on whatever. And if somebody asks you, says, so can you predict which one it will fall the next time? Then you say, no, you can't, because you cannot predict. That is not a contradiction. And that is exactly what I've said. There is absolutely no difference between inconclusive and no predictive value. It means that one cannot be used as a barometer to predict the other. So that is one. He said,
has that been clarified?
Shall we come and respond?
Yes, yes. Then he says that I said I guarantee you. Okay, I can admit to a certain extent that you've caught me on that one, but it is a figure of speech. I mean, when we speak, we do not speak in all the times in absolute terms. When you say I guarantee, you are saying that the probability is, and I have already accepted to him. The core argument everywhere I've gone is that I said I am not God, and that no one can predict for sure. So if one says I guarantee, even when you sign a guarantee in court, sometimes it doesn't end up being a guarantee. Okay, so it is a figure of speech. But the point is that empirical evidence will always lead to some form of predictive value. Okay, there is some empirical evidence that is inconclusive and cannot lead to predictive values, and that is all I have said. He's talked about, I can give very few. He mentioned FDD. Only on FDD itself, I can give you the example of Major Richard Kashingo, who won Kawata, and a few months later he lost it. even what's his name, the deputy minister of commerce, who later became, I think, UPND. I forgot his name. He stood in the Chawama, lost it and won it on a ticket. He stood because there was some ruckus where President Michael Sata went, and you remember the Panga incident. He lost it.
He won it both ways. I was in the council at the time. He won it both.
Are you sure?
Yes. Some Conga, just some.
Well, I've got different data, but if you say that he did,
now which is the correct data? He's saying you won it.
I'm telling you, if you're talking about Chawama, Jeff Samkonga won it in the by-election, and he won it in the general election.
Yes, yeah, but I've given you the Richard Kachingwe example, and there are many other examples where people have won and subsequently have lost it. And it is like what I was saying, that if you have a coin and you spin it, you cannot determine whether it will fall on the heads, or tails, depending on how many times you do it. It has absolutely.
All right, I have to cut you short, and I know you want to respond, but looking at my watch, we're already 1 hour down.
No, but give him a chance.
We only remain about 10 minutes.
I talk too much.
So I think the best thing that I can do for now is also to allow the viewers to bring in their comments and hear what they are saying. Because I've got a couple of questions really which I would want to ask. But let's hold on, and we'll be discussing after we get some views from the members of the public. If you have any calls, let's accommodate them. Then we'll get back to the discussion on the other side. Good evening.
Hello?
Hello, good evening. Please, when you call, be brief so that we can accommodate more callers.
Okay,
good evening.
Okay. Are you getting me?
Hello?
Hello?
Ah, wow. I can hardly hear you. Please try again. Try again. Do you have any calls coming through? Good evening. Hello?
Good evening, Colin.
Good evening, thank you. Kindly speak up, we can hardly hear you. Hello?
Yes, I just have got one comment.
Who are we speaking to, sir?
Mhavi. Mhavi, you are an intelligent man. I think politics is not your field. Why can't you try academics? Go and impart that knowledge to people that are in school. What you are telling us there, it cannot make sense whatsoever. Zambians are not dogs that they can vomit and still go back to their homes. MMD has got no future. As we speak, people are talking about the UPND. UPND is the party that will deliver Zambia. As we speak, as of now, youths are the most affected. And if you remember very well, 2011, the youth made sure that MMD was out of power. And that happened. And for this 2016, whether we like it or not, youth are going to stand up and bring change that will leave a test of time. You know, I always wonder why always Mhavi you always want to remain behind. UNIP was in power, you are behind. You held on to UNIP, or UNIP will still come back, and see at the end of it all, you saw that, okay, MMD is making sense. You joined MMD, and again, you cannot see that Zambia is moving forward, you're still lagging behind. Surely. You need that kind of mind in the MMD, in the UPND, not where you are. MMD is going to the ground. MMD is drowning as we speak. Please, if you cannot join the UPND, please go and do academics, impart that knowledge to the youth in the colleges, in the universities. That will make sense. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much. We didn't get your name though. Hello? Okay, he's gone. We didn't get his name, but let's accommodate.
Do you want? Okay. Can I have a piece of paper to write?
Please, I'll facilitate that. Please help me with a piece of paper.
Yeah.
All right. Let's accommodate more calls. Good evening. Hello. Hello. Good evening. All right, director. Let's get a different line. It seems somebody's not yet ready. Good evening. Hello? Hello? Hello, good evening.
Hello?
Good evening, sir. Your name? Vandani? Evans Chipacha. Yes, Mr. Evans. You got that?
Bishop Chipacha.
Oh, okay. Yes, sir. Mr. Chipacha. Go ahead, sir. Kambani chitundu chili chonse boss Kambani.
Yeah.
Okay, I think the line is extremely bad, but you can try again. We have got more callers trying to call. Let's get another one. Hello? Hello, good evening. Good evening. Hello? Good evening, sir. Kindly speak up. Hello? All right. As we work on that, I think we're just having a challenge there.
Yes.
We've got plenty of people trying to
call.
But let's try to respond to the first call. Then, you also come in. But
yes.
I know that question was directed
at myself. Let me put it this way. That obviously, from the caller's perspective, I can reliably say, not 100% as I've been saying, I can reliably say that the caller was probably a UPND member. Okay? Because he has said, Mr. Lungu, go back to academics. Okay? So he thinks, in his view, that politics should not have statistical figures. It should not have arguments, which seems to have value based, but it should be maybe about throwing stones or something like that. So we don't want any people who can speak academics in politics. But academics and going to school and all that are to be valued in a society. If a society has to all societies that has moved up have had people who... China, we all glorify China today. If you look at the Politburo of the Chinese Communist Party, you will find...
also ask you to summarize your statement so that we allow...
Okay, fine. No, fine. So, that is one, okay? I think that is a misconception. I'm sorry for the caller. The second one is that he made a direct attack on the MMD. Now, if you are in a debate environment like that, what you do, if people are to believe you, is you make an argument depending on what I have said. What he has done is made a political statement. The MMD is dying. So I have every reason to believe that the gentleman is not a supporter of the MMD. And I cannot be worried about that because I know that in Lusaka or on the Copper Belt, I have supporters, the UPND have supporters, the PF have supporters, and everyone calls into programs like this to make a pitch for their political party. So it doesn't help. The problem in this country has become the fact that the noise that I was talking about, that politics is very noisy, it is being generated by a very few group of people. And sometimes, because some people are more effective at creating noises, it creates the impression that everyone believes that view. That is what deceived Mr. Sata into believing that everyone will always love him. That is what deceived us, the MMD, into believing that we would win. That, in a sense, may deceive the UPND to believe that they are definitely going to be the winners. We have to be able to see.
Thank you so much.
That is all I
want to respond to any, though I know that...
Well, not necessarily to that. Okay. I think I just want to maintain that with what I've said before, that by-elections, in our view, have a predictive value of the performance of parties in the general election. And I'd like to get an extreme example. The reason why we are writing off UNIP, or the general public, or most of the people write off UNIP, NAREP or other parties, is based on their performances in these elections. Even the Bible says if you can't manage your own house, how will you manage something bigger? And I think the principle is the same throughout life. You must be seen to manage something smaller, to be trusted with something big. And I think that I cannot dismiss the value of winning by-elections. I think that in the minds of most voters and in the minds of political analysts, it is a clear indication. I can tell you from my organization, because I'm deputy CEO, that I have seen that by our ability to win by-elections, even our resource mobilization has become easier. It means that people out there are beginning to believe more in our ability to win. And therefore I cannot come to a conclusion that my comrade has come to, that they have no predictive value about them. I think they do have a significant value about it. Elections are about belief. And how do you build belief? It's based on your past performances.
And you both believe that you
So the
stand
reason
better
people
chance in
write off
2016.
UNIP.
Let's accommodate more callers. Let's accommodate callers. Hello? Hello? I'm seeing our phone flashing throughout, but I don't know why
but the voices are not
they
coming
cannot
through.
come through, but our phone keeps on flashing. Good evening. Hello? Good evening, sir.
Yes,
Your name and where you're calling us from, please? Kindly turn off the volume on your TV set. Turn off the volume on your TV set, sir.
Hello?
Hello? Turn off the volume on your TV set. Thank you.
Hello?
We are with you. Go ahead. All right, we lost you. Good evening. Hello? Hello? Oh. Good evening. Hello?
Hello?
Good evening, sir. Your name?
I think I'm an unknown caller.
Yes, sir. You can go ahead.
Well, my observation is that when your communication, we have to see have a problem of your telephone communication. I think you can improve on that so that people can contribute better.
E.g., sir, what are you trying to refer to?
The callers that you have lost are many. Yes. So I think there is a problem with
Okay.
your gadgets there.
All right. Thank you so much, sir. I think we are working on that one. Thank you. Thank you very much. Good evening. Hello? Hello? Good evening. Hello? Good evening, sir. Hello? What's happening? Is it us or where is the problem? But let's try again. Good evening. Hello?
Hello?
Good evening, sir. Your name?
Hello, this is Mwene.
Yes, Mr. Mwene.
Yeah. Why are you moving?
I am fine, Mr. Mwene. How are you?
Hello?
I am fine, Mr. Mwene. I am very well.
Great. How are you, Mr. Mwene?
Yeah, when I was moving, it's like you are just trying to disturb your friends. Otherwise, the time of what I'm looking for in the power. I'm looking at making
Someone says you're here to disturb your friends.
Yeah,
But hold on, with that. Good evening. Let's get some more calls. Good evening. Hello? Hello? Good evening, sir. Okay, you can try again. I think let me give 2 tries, then we get to the discussion. Good evening. Hello?
Do you have to fix this?
Yeah. Director, let's hold on with the calls.
Okay.
Let's
So
hold
can I-
on.
yeah, so
Let's
okay.
hold on with the calls.
Yeah, until you fix it.
Yeah.
Let me. Was he's insisting on predictive value?
I think let's hold on with that one.
Okay.
I think there's one question that I wanted to find out. I think let me start with you before I get to him. Do you think the media are playing a bigger role in terms of fueling this political debate between you and the MMD?
Well,
In your own view?
Well, I wouldn't say yes or no. I think that in some cases, of course, they have sensationalized what has been said, because also media houses have got an agenda that we have to accept. But I think that they've also tried to, bring out our differences, so that probably we can, instead of us,
You agree these are now differences? Because earlier on
No,
you said...
I think I did agree. I think that's my opening remark. I said, I'm in UPND, he's in MMD. That already shows that we are different. I think that's how I opened my debate. I did, and I said that it is healthy as long as we remain civil about it. And I think that's been my contention throughout the debate. So I think that the media have to bring out these things. And I did say that if MMD and UPND become exactly the same, then one of the parties is irrelevant. I think that I was, in my opening statement, I did make that. So they have a right to be different from us. They have a right to see things differently. And that's why there's debate. And we must debate this. And the role of the media is to bring out our differences. We see certain policies different. I think during the Mwanawasa era, they plagiarized most of our manifesto. We talked about free education. They were against in the campaign. They implemented it. They implemented it, and many other things. I mean, Godfrey Mianda, when he was vice president, was against free education. Are you getting the point? And that was their campaign going to 2001. He was the vice president of the MMD party. And that's how they campaigned. Chilwa was president then. They ushered in Mwanawasa. Mwanawasa brought in the New Deal. The policies started implementing were different from what they campaigned on. And most of those were plagiarized from our document. And so, but we have to debate. So if we convince them and I think we have a good idea and they apply it and it's good for Zambia, that's great. And I think that's the attitude. But it will be different. Definitely we can't think the way PF thinks. And we will not think the way MMD thinks. So we'll have to have our way of thinking which we think will better than Zambia.
All right, Mr. Muhammad Lungo.
Yeah,
but you can actually respond to him. You can also respond to the issue of the media.
Yes, but because that one I won't forget. But let me deal with the question of him saying the MMD plagiarized from the UPND. The MMD, when it was created, was what you would call a right-wing political party believing in extreme capitalism. And it was a direct reaction to the socialism of UNIP. Mr. Anderson Mazoka, when he formed his political party in 1998, I believe, was also of the same view of Chiluba. In fact, I remember attending the first press conference of the UPND at Pamosia Hotel in Mkoa, room 2, I remember, and how he was extorting the Oppenheimers and the free market principles. It was exactly the same. The reasons why MMD shifted their policy frame from being extreme right-wing capitalism to the center was because of the influences of the argument that was brought to bear by UNIP. Because UNIP kept on insisting that, one, you should have unbundled the privatization process, kept on insisting that you should not have abolished subsidies. UNIP was very fundamental in those arguments, and that argument resonated very well from the point of view of socialism. That argument could not have resonated from a political party that was also espousing the same philosophy of the free market. So to suggest that MMD borrowed is not true. The Mwanawasa administration, the New Deal of Dr. Mwanawasa, borrowed from the Keynesian philosophy, which is again not a UPND philosophy. It's a philosophy that is based on the basis that when an economy fails to jump by itself, then you create a jump start. It's like you are recharging a battery, and the only way you can do that is to begin to crawl back the state into the involvement of the economy. So there was no plagiarism at all. I think that if they think that we plagiarize, then I think that they are promoting themselves a little bit much. Secondly, the issue of the media instigating this. When I held a press conference at the Secretariat, I think that there was a lady from ZNBC who had asked me whether this thing was being instigated by the media. And I did say to her that, and this is what I'm saying here, that obviously you cannot discount, as my colleague is saying, that there is an element in which the media, of course, have got agendas, and that they're going to try and play us against each other. And of course, particularly, we are talking about the Post newspapers here, particularly, okay? And of course, sometimes ZNBC. But I indicated that the media are very good at smelling blood. It's like a shark. A shark in open sea, if you are a human being in the open sea and you have not cut yourself, the chances of a shark finding you is very rare. But immediately there is an incision and there is blood in the water, no matter how far it is, it will smell the blood. It's the same thing with the crocodile in the water. If there is blood in the water, it will smell it. So the media have smelled that there is a conflict between all of these political parties, and all they are doing is taking advantage of the blood that has been spilled in the water. Now, is it wrong?
And you're playing to the gallery.
We are playing to the gallery because we have come to a position where we have failed to agree among ourselves that there must be civility.
Now,
Now
we are getting somewhere. I think that's where I wanted to go.
Yes.
Now. That's where I wanted to
We
reach.
have failed.
Why have you failed to sit down and discuss your issues harmoniously instead of this one throws at the other, this punch, the other one throws a punch at the other.
Maybe
playing on the other hands of
maybe
some
let
selected
me give me an
media
opportunity
institutions.
so that he can answer me properly.
Okay, but let's hold on. Let's get the calls.
All right.
Then when we come back, we'll be looking at that issue.
I see.
Do we have more calls coming through? Do we have calls, Director?
Hello?
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir.
Hello?
Hello?
Good evening.
Good evening, how are you? Hello?
Wow, we cannot get you here. Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Yes, I can.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Mohabilungu.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Smusamba.
Good evening, sir.
Your name, sir?
This is Brian Buharia from Matelo.
Yes, Mr. Bwalia.
Yeah, I want to contribute. Mr. Mohabilungu from MMG. I think Mr. Mohabilungu is a very intelligent man. But look at your... as it is now, the MMD won't bounce back to power. The time is already gone. And let me be open with you. I don't want to hide anything from you. Your president, Dr. Nevas Mumba, is supposed to go back to church. He's supposed to go and preach the word of God. He had the word of God in his mouth. Not to come here and start cheating people. Nevas Mumba, I remember very well, he wrote in the paper, he said,
All right. let's allow other callers also. Good evening. Hello. Hello. Good evening. Hello. Hello. Good evening. Good evening. Okay, let's get to the discussion.
Should I answer?
Do you want to answer it?
No, because the question was directed at me.
You can answer
Yes.
Answer
First
it.
of all, let me tell you that, and again, I have said I don't believe in messiahs. The only messiah I believe in is Jesus. So I'm not a messiah and I'm not about to start claiming. But I can guarantee you that the chances that the caller who called is not a Mlenga. Huh? And again he will say, no, you are saying guarantee. I'm just saying as a figure of speech. I'm saying that the probabilities that the caller who called was not Mr. Mileng. Because I know that there are people who call and disguise their names and so on, so that they do not have the effect which they think that if they reveal who they are, people will assume that they are so on. Earlier on I said that, and then secondly, there is an issue of, we are not discussing Dr. Mumba here, okay? And now we are going to start now discussing presidential candidates.
No, I'm sure what he was trying to say is you're representing.
No.
You're representing the president.
Yes.
Who's supposed to go to the pulpit, back to the pulpit.
The MMD, and again I can say this, with some degree of confidence, knowing that even Dr. Mumba is watching me. I believe that Dr. Mumba has talents, but the MMD is not about Dr. Mumba. That is one thing that you can count on. This party I belong to does not have a single individual which it believes is a messiah of this party. We are there as a collective in the MMD. And we do not expect that Dr. Mumba has got all the talents in which to lead. We expect that he will have enough leadership to bring others along with him. So whether he is a preacher, whether he is an economist, whether he is a lawyer, whether he is a politician, is at the end of the day not very consequential. You can be the best economist in the world, but if everyone who is following you is merely worshipping you and saying you are the greatest, you may not achieve anything when you get into government. So that is besides the point. But the important issue that I was making is this. Clearly this is again a personal attack. Like even the statement that I've made regarding the statistical tables. There is a gentleman who has answered me from the UPND. and 3/4 of the attack is about me. It is not about the arguments. I mean, I think he's put some arguments there. But 3/4 of the argument is about Mr. Lungu, go back to whatever, you are in UNIP and whatever. You're not attacking the argument. I have presented an argument. If you want to be effective, attack the argument. So even with the callers, they should attack it.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Lungu. I know we've got a lot of issues to discuss, but I know we've got little to respond to from...
You're not sleeping. It looks like all the questions.
No,
that's the more reason why you are quiet, because most of the questions have been directed.
Lead us properly. You were saying you're going to give chance to Muhavi to lay it out how we have felt, so that I answer.
Yes.
Now you're throwing it back to
whatever you have felt.
You had said that the media have smelt the blood.
Okay,
you have failed to resolve issues.
Exactly.
And you had asked for an opportunity to lay out how we.
And that's
felt.
where
I respond.
Okay.
Now I'm saying that I'm being asked to respond without the argument being laid forth. So unless you want me to just comment generally.
No, because for him, he's saying you felt as
he wanted to explain how we have felt.
I wanted to explain that.
Thank you for that direction.
Yeah, I wanted to explain.
You can explain. Go ahead.
You see, for example, we shouldn't be skirting around these issues, okay? Because it doesn't help anyone. The arguments that have been put on the table has been the fact that he raised the issue and others have raised the issue that we are all competing, okay? They feel that we try to shrink their space because Dr. Mumba, for example, will say, don't try someone who's untested. Then they get to say, okay, no, he must be talking about us. If the UPND says MMD is a dying party, don't go to there, we get offended and we begin to react. So this is an emblem of a disagreement because we are all fighting for the same space. And I think we all agreed there that it is a competition. But for me as an individual, and I'm not really as national secretary of a political party, I am not supposed to be talking about for me as an individual. But I am saying this simply because everyone out there has identified me that I've been the one who has been the one out in the field.
I think the issue here is, you said the media have sensed there's some blood there.
That's right.
And they're trying to capitalize on these differences.
That is right.
And according to all of you, UPND and MMD, you are responding to this one responds to the other, because you failed to resolve these issues amicably.
No, but
so have you reached to the UPND, or has the UPND reached to you?
One statement so I can give
in private way, say, let's put this issue to an end of where we'll be attacking each other in papers,
well, I think that you would agree with me, my friend, that saying, for example, that don't experiment is not the same as someone saying that if you belong to this political party, you are mad. I think that there is a big difference there. I would say that if a person says don't do experimentation, it's civility. When you begin to say your colleagues are mad, it is not civil. And for me, as an individual, that's what I was saying.
That you're mad?
I reacted.
Who said that you're mad?
I reacted because I heard the voice of the president of the UPND on Radio Phoenix saying this, and I didn't think that it was civil. Okay, I didn't think that it was civil, and I thought that if we're going to go that direction, then we are all going to start now taking the gloves off, and we'll have a situation where what is happening in Mangango, there has to be, and he said to them, there has to be a degree of civility.
Why didn't you approach the UPND to say,
because it was not the first time.
Okay.
Okay. I think first he has singled out a moment. I think let me respond to that. I think that first of all, I find it rather very unfortunate if that is what has instigated all this. Muhavi, in his press conference of 5th August, made a statement, I want to call it a lecture, on political maturity. He says they are mature because they don't respond to statements without making a research. And he was going after President HH for having responded to the Mutomboko statement which was in the Post. And he says, for them as a mature party, before they react, they do background research. That's when they react. Of course, I've got questions on that. But on this particular instance, which Muhavi is bringing out and has been bringing out severally, I even went to his office, I spoke to him about it. I don't know whether he remembers it.
No, I remember.
I was on the Copper Belt when I heard that statement on the radio. And when bad statements happen, I call him. We chat. He's here. And I called my president, and he says, no, that was a slip of the tongue. If you listen to the whole thing, I was talking about PF, you are a journalist. But I'm used to attacking MMD, they were the ruling party. And what I have done, I have written a text to Dr. Mumba. And Dr. Mumba has since responded. And my president was kind enough to send me both text messages. His message to Dr. Mumba, apologizing to MMD and explaining the circumstance. Not Mr. Mumba or Dr. Mumba asking for it. President H said it. A day after, Dr. Mumba responded and said, I've been trying to call you and I didn't reach you. But thanks, let's put this behind us. It's over. Are you getting the point? Now, if this great political party does research before they respond to this statement, I'm amazed that the CEO of MMD failed to research from his president. Are you getting the point? But he has gone on, and he's even on this fora, going on to attack on a slip of a tongue of another president. Are you getting the point? He's gone on, and I have got empirical evidence on my phone here. And his president is a man of the collar. I know he can't lie. Are you getting the point? So this is the true thing about this unfortunate incident. If Mojave would have just taken 2 minutes to ask his president, he would have realized that immediately after the press conference, HH sent Dr. Mumba, because it ran, I think, on the Phoenix News of 13 Hours, and I called my president. I said, no. I didn't even know it came out like that. But this was the context. And he sent a message. The other president acknowledged. And if you read the message by HH, says, I apologize to you and the entire MMD at large. And Dr. Mumba acknowledged the apology. But I'm amazed that this great mature party, failing to pass its own maturity test, is now going ahead, preaching a matter which we have put behind us. Are you get the point?
Yeah.
So I think that it's, unless there are many other things. But the other thing I can accept, running a political party is a difficult undertaking. I cannot therefore think that UPND should feel very bad because of what, for instance, Bowman Lusambo says. He says a lot of hateful things about President H.
Now we are bringing in individuals here.
May I finish? May I finish? We might as well take it that that's what MMD is saying. I see Bowman next to the president almost all the time. I could also react in the same manner. So there have been a lot of bad exchange. What I know is that he's not responsible for. He has got rogues in his party. They will say certain things. One of his former vice presidents said his enemy number 1 was UPND, enemy number 2 was MMD. I don't think he believes that. I get the point. But there's a way of taking things in your stride and resolving it. And as long as we exist as parties, we're going to have members in our political parties who are going to say something about other political parties. We can't be responsible for everything. But where we can apologize, we should apologize. But if the issue is about the so-called mad people statement, I think that Mojave has taken it too far.
And that's exactly what he instigated all these.
Because he has failed to ask the man of the collar who leads his party, who actually said, this thing is behind us.
As CEO of the party, did you take time to find out from the president?
Yes, I did. And again, I think that you have to understand here. One, I have already stated to you that as far as the MMD is concerned, Dr. Mumba is not the alpha and the omega of the political party. Maybe other people have got deities, okay? For us, he's not a deity, okay? He's a president, okay? And he's elected 5 years. So his word is not the alpha and the omega. We respect him. I respect Dr. Mumba intensely. I think he's a good leader. Regardless of the insults that people can shower on him, I respect him. But we have a constitution, and I do not represent Dr. Mumba myself. I represent the MMD, and I was elected by the National Executive Committee. My responsibility is to defend the integrity of the party, not to defend Dr. Mumba. That is one, okay? Secondly, so I did find out. I'm privy to the thing, and others. I'm privy to other issues that were said beyond that. But I don't think we are adults, and we're not going to be saying this. What? I can just say two things. One, he has not denied that it was not said. He says that he said he made a slip of the tongue. The rest of us did not know that it was a slip of the tongue until there is a private apology. If I have done something that is wrong, I will apologize in the public. If you recall, the Post at one point ran a running headline in which they said I had said something against Dr. Msokotwane, who is a member of my political party. And the following day, they wrote a story in which it was said Mojave is a liar or lied Dr. Msokotwane. Okay? They cut and paste a number of things on an interview which I had made. I held a press conference and challenged the Post. And I did say, but if I was misunderstood, I would like to apologize. If my words were not in the right context, I would like to apologize.
So in short, you are saying the UPND
Well,
president was
he-
supposed to apologize in public?
If it was a genuine mistake, they should have been a public apology. But by the fact that it was a private apology, the following day, President HH held another press conference at the Secretariat, in which, although he did not say the words as he had said it, said something similar. Meaning that, and when we are sitting together with our some of our people in the political party that you have approached, for example, you have called maybe some group of people you think that are very careful, you called him to your office, the words that are said to them resonate with what was said openly. So we did not think that it was a one-off issue. We did not think that it was a mistake. We believe that it was a calculated thing to begin to discourage our members that we were in fact mad and we were dying. So it is not the level of the insult. And I've said that in my paper. It is not the veracity of the argument. It is the implication of the statement. And the implication of the statement clearly said, don't bother about them. We're the future. Go away with them. So if you want to reduce this issue to say, no, I felt insulted, then it's unfortunate. If you are going to reduce to this, no, because there were text messages, then again it's unfortunate. But people can judge for themselves. You know, I have had worse things as an individual said to me about people which I haven't reacted. Why should this thing be
Mr. Lungu, let's try to see if we can attempt to accommodate some callers, though I'm told that
time is up.
Time is up. But let's attempt, Director. Let's attempt at least 2 calls, if we have any. Hello? Hello, good evening. We lost you. Let's give another try. Good evening. Hello? Hello, good evening. Hello? Hello, good evening. Hello? Yes, sir, your name? Wino mshani ba chansa.
Awe ndishe wino.
Mkwai.
Awe nefona trafo kulanda bofie.
Mkwai. Nde
fwafie nde tungirira ba MMG pakwewa wanga pitafie. Tena trafo kulanda bofie tofie.
Ba MMG kustashani? Did anybody get that? No. Did you get that?
No. I didn't.
All right. Adi, let's give another try to another caller. Hello?
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, thank you, sir. Your name?
How are you? My name is Pomonga.
Yes, Mr. Pomonga.
How are you, my brother Mhalulungu?
How are you, Mr. Monga?
Fine, thank you. How are you, Kuchanga?
How are you, Mr. Monga?
I'm fine, thank you, my dear brother. You know, British is a very good game, actually. We are all fishing from one pond. I'm saying this to the last statement my brother Mhalulungu learned so much that the UK are using underhand method to get to the members. Now, I want to find out from him what kind of underhand method the MMD used to take him out from me to join MMD. Thank you.
Okay, that's fine.
You've gotten that one?
Yeah. What sort of underhand message did you? Yeah.
Okay. Last call. Good evening. Hello?
Hello?
Hello? Good evening. Your name, sir? We lost you. Let me get the last call, then we'll wrap it on the other side. Good evening. Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Kalan.
Good evening, thank you. Your name?
Louis on the line.
Yes, Mr. Lewis.
Yes, I wanted to find out one thing from Mr. Mhabi. Are you
Yes.
able to get me?
Loud and clear, sir. Go ahead.
Very well.
Are you able to get me? Just give me a thumb.
Go ahead, yes.
Okay, yes. I wanted to find out one thing from Mr. Mhabi. What message really do the MMD have now that really the people of Zambia would buy? Because I'm failing to get the message whatsoever. And I've got problems with the person they've put in as the best speaker, as per se. The person advertising, Dr. Mumba. I've got a lot of problems with him. Looking at where he's coming from, the background that he's created for himself, and definitely the message that he has for the Zambian people, I'm failing to get it. And you know, one thing that I can push kudos on MMD is that you know, what you are doing, to some extent, helping the other colleagues, the UPND, because the more you attack them, the more people get to know them. Who are these people? Because if I really check on the message that have against the UPND and the PS message they have against the UPND, the issues of the tax, the tribalism, and I'm here wondering, is Kutunga a man from the southern province? Really, I'm not just convinced. MMD, yes, led us well with the leadership of LP. That was splendid. But with what you have now, what are you telling the Zambian people? Yes, with the UPND, we're able to get something that these people are facing facts. They are facing reality. They're telling the people.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Lewis. When we seem to be getting along with the technology, we are even in our dying minutes.
Yeah, it looks like I'm the one who is the provoker. So let me answer the question.
I don't know, you have to be very quick.
No, I'll be very quick.
Very quick, please.
The first caller said, what underhand methods did MMD use to convince me to join uni? To join MMD.
MMD, yes.
I can tell you that when I joined the MMD, I was not a member of UNIP. I was expelled from the United National Independence Party in 2000. Okay? In 2000. And I left because I was expelled and went. I joined UNIP in 2000. I joined MMD in 2008, I believe. Okay? After the elections and so on. So there is what you are asking me is a personal question related to me as a matter of choice. I gave specific examples when I was talking about the underhand methods, and I by no means did I ever say that any person who joins the UPND has joined the UPND because of underhand methods. In fact, if you read my statement, sir, you will see that I said if people are joining the UPND because they believe that they've got a better message, that they believe they've got a more convincing, I have no problems with it. What I have a problem with is when there are underhand methods that are involved. And at that particular press conference, I itemized what those underhand methods were. So let me first answer him. So people make their choices. People make their choices, and I made my own choice, and so I made my own choice. The question of Dr. Mumba, let me again just repeat in case that people misunderstand me. Okay? Dr. Mumba was elected at a convention of the MMD, and he won with more than 60% of the vote at the MMD convention. And he won because a lot of people believed that he had the skill set in order to govern that party. My allegiance and my loyalty to him is total, and I believe that he has got the skills to take our party to the next level. But because our party is democratic, people can voice their views. We had elections, some people lost, and other people have failed to accept it. It happens in political parties. So if he's going through some turbulence, it may be as a result that we have some degree of freedom which may not exist in other political parties. It is acceptable. And again, it is not so severe for us, because I have said, because the president, whoever he is, President Munawasa was not the Alpha and Omega.
Quickly, Mr.
Quickly. I think that he wants to...
Quickly.
No, but I've answered, I think.
Yeah, I think you have.
Both questions.
You have.
Yeah.
And a minute, please, your concluding remarks. And then I get back to him finally.
Well, my concluding remarks, obviously, is that I think that my paper and the statements that I've issued have obviously provoked a lot of people. And that is granted. And I want people there to know that in my provocation, I have not used any insulting words on anyone. I have set a paper in it which I think people should be able to destroy the arguments of that paper. and not to call me names, not to bring my character into question, because I have not brought anyone's character into question unless I can prove that a person said this, which in some cases, as in this case, it was admitted. I have just disagreed on whether an apology was accepted or not, and I've said that as far as me and many others concerned, we did not believe that a private SMS accounted for an apology.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Long. Thank you so much. I think also under a minute, you can respond and give us your concluding remarks.
Well, I think that Mojave put up a paper, but along with putting his arguments, he also attacked certain individuals who also have personal feelings. For instance, he takes Mwetwa's remarks and says this is the thinking in the UPND. I think that I don't know how he gets to that conclusion.
But is that an insult?
And I'm giving you respect for your chance. So he says this is the thinking in the UPND. I find it insulting, okay, because that's not probably my thinking. So he makes a lot of conclusions. He goes after my president, and he even says it's not fitting for him, for a person vying and so forth. So also people will have personal feelings when they respond to his paper. They'll say personal things about him alongside attacking his argument. So I think that's fairly square. But suffice to say that, even in the MMD, there are flawed arguments. I went to Dr. Mumba's inauguration at the Mulungushi Conference Center, and I could not believe that the man stood in that podium and said, I've been elected now, I'll go punch for punch. We lost by 150,000 votes, and I'll clear that deficit in 6 months. My thinking was, how illogical can this man be? He still thinks the MMD is behind the PF by 150,000 votes today. I mean, the dynamics have changed. But definitely that's the thinking probably at the upper echelons of the MMD, and I think that's flawed thinking, and maybe that's why they get offended when we're winning by elections and saying this predicts that we're going to win. And I think that's where the conflict comes from. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Let us shake hands, because this is not a quarrel. It's a debate. Congratulations.
What a way to end this debate. I know we cannot conclude it conclusively as anybody would expect. I mean, at the end of the day, what I may see is that this is just political sizing. You're just trying to size each other on the political arena. Who's who in this game? He represents the MMD with different views. He represents the UPND with different views. At the end of the day, all of them, they want to tell the nation that we are the party of choice. The UPND want to claim that they are the party of the moment. The MMD want to also take the lion's share, if I may use that word, to say we are the party of the moment, of course, to bring Zambians out of what most people are claiming: slavery, economic slavery, political slavery, and so forth and so on. So at the end of the day, get it from me, that handshake tells you a lot. There's no kind of fighting, but they're just trying to size one another. My name is Kala Mchima. Thank you so much to both candidates, both senior party officials from the MMD and UPND, Mr. Uchunga Simsamba, the Deputy Secretary General of UPND, and Mr. Mojave Lungu, the National Secretary of the MMD. We're looking at the impact of political divisions among the opposition in Zambia. All right, to everyone that had found time to join in or tune in, whichever word you want to use, thank you so much. Good night and God bless. Thank you.
Thank you.
Potato sticks, freaky fries. Get that awesome crunch.